So it is not lost on me how loathsome commencement addresses can be. We haven't experienced any yet, but just wait. Just hold on. Especially from some charter school administrator you've never met. Oh, the horror. I want you to know that I wrote this address, though not as an administrator, but as a father. I had my own kids in mind. While I don't have a graduate this year, I will next. My oldest, Carter, will be finishing his last year at Veritas, and I thought about him and his brothers, and I thought about you all when preparing these remarks. And at the risk of going full Greathearts on you, I have decided to anchor this address to a poem, one of my favorite poems, Sonnet Number 10 from Huntsman What Quarry by Edna St. Vincent Millay. I want to take you through it with some quick reflections. It gets a little dark, a little bit dark, but then every Greatheart senior is sent off into a world of some darkness and called to be a light and a hope within it, to not fall for the lies of the age, but to have the courage to stand up for what is, yes, you have heard it a million times, what is true and good and beautiful. I promise to not let this drag on, at least not, it'll drag on a little bit, but you'll be okay. But let's hear the poem first. Upon this age that never speaks its mind, this furtive age, this age endowed with power, to wake the moon with footsteps, fit an oar into the rowlocks of the wind, and find what swims before his prow, what swirls behind. Upon this gifted age, in its dark hour, rains from the sky a meteoric shower of facts. They lie unquestioned, uncombined. Wisdom enough to leach us of our ill is daily spun, but there exists no loom to weave it into fabric. Undefiled precedes pure science and has her say, but still upon this world, from the collective womb, is spewed all day the red, triumphant child. Millay wrote this sonnet just before or close to the beginning of 1939, when Huntsman What Quarry was first published. A consequential year amidst a larger consequential time, if there ever was one. As she wrote the sonnet, she did not know what you now know, that by September of that year, the world would be thrust back into war, with Germany invading Poland. Nearly 85 million people would perish between the fall of 39 and the summer of 45. That's almost 3 times the population of our city slaughtered every year for 6 straight years. It was indeed an age endowed with power, an age fascinated with its own genius, an age of men seeking the utopic visions, their utopic visions, with all the tyrannical mania of minor gods. You could see it brewing at the turn of the century. The old institutions were fading. There was no trust in the ancient pieties and the old dogmas anymore. This was the age of the nation state. The age where mankind could finally put all the faculties of its technological and rationalist dreams into the service of a perfected society. And in a prophetic tone, an age just 30 years on from the publication of the sonnet would indeed wake the moon with footsteps. A gifted age, however, in its dark hour. But why dark? What happened? Raining from the sky is a meteoric shower of facts. That's probably truer for you now than it was even for Millay. New discoveries, new information, the genius of mankind on display at every turn, new facts, better facts. But those facts lie unquestioned, she writes. Of course, why question the thing that endows you with power? Here we have wisdom enough wisdom at our disposal to rid us of our ills, Millay states, and yet for all the knowledge, something is missing. There seems to be no shortage of fancy ideas, big ideas, promising to take all the new facts and make a better world from them. However, the truth that ties it all into a meaningful thread, Millay says, is missing. We, it seems, for all of our power, for all of our growing knowledge, can still miss something. And here may be the first lesson. Be suspicious in this next season of your life of those who would dazzle you with fancy ideas, with the new facts. Be suspicious of visions of grandeur and utopias. Be suspicious not only because there are no fancy ideas. There is nothing new under the sun. Everything is repackaged. Those visions and those utopias, especially the ones university professors seem to be quite fond of, have been peddled before. But be suspicious also because the fanciful things are all too often a mile wide in their promises and an inch deep in their substance. And they will always fail you. And be suspicious, especially suspicious, of those ideas that tempt you to put on a kind of cultural piety, particularly a piety that is nothing more than a devotion to criticism. It is easy to criticize what has come before you. It's the only thing, by the way, universities tend to do any longer. This is not to say, of course, that you should avoid criticism. Certainly not. Lord knows there is plenty in the world worthy of it. I'm engaging in a bit of it right now, if you haven't noticed. But be suspicious of those who only criticize. They lay traps for young minds, and some never escape. In this vein, before we look at the end of the sonnet, let me go back to the beginning really quickly. Millay says at the opening of the sonnet that it was an age that never speaks its mind. Here, I think, is yet another lesson. Well, simply put, speak your mind and be sure it is yours. Consider how easy it is for all of us to want to hide within the zeitgeist, within the spirit of the age, to let our thoughts and our words conform to the dominant narrative. Now, to be fair, don't simply dismiss the dominant narrative because it is dominant. Assume those around you believe the things they do because they see truth in them. Contend with what is before you. But likewise, don't play the cowardly chameleon who blends in order to not cause any trouble, to just get on, to hide, to fit in. We all know there was plenty of that in the 1930s, as Millay rightly observes. One thing for each of you to consider might be this. If your worldview becomes nothing more than a reflection of those with all the cultural power and status, if your opinions are the ones that you hear proclaimed almost in unison by every Hollywood elite, every 20-something pop star, nearly all those enlightened CEOs and tenured professors, the government bureaucrats of 30 years, the TikTok philosophers, and maybe everyone playing for, say, I don't know, the LA Lakers, maybe, just maybe, it might be worth considering an alternative perspective. Maybe they have it all right. Maybe they've figured it all out. But maybe they are missing something. Maybe they are missing something. Speaking your mind is difficult because it levies upon you the responsibility to first think clearly, with the truth as your aim, not simply conformity to the ideologies that protect you by fitting in. Millay spoke her mind, and at great cost sometimes. And this takes us to the end of her poem. Undefiled, she writes, precedes pure science and has her say, but still, upon this world from the collective womb is spewed all day the red, triumphant child. Millay saw better than most the reality that knowledge untethered from virtue is a cruel friend. She also saw that no matter how much we have advanced as a people, we are still very much prone to holding on to very bad ideas. The intellectual elite of her time were prone to romantic visions of a collectivist paradise, which is to say, they made it quite fashionable to wax poetic on the strengths of Marxism. Millay didn't buy it. What she saw coming forth from the collective womb was the triumphalism of the communist state, a triumphalism riddled with genocide, oppression, and the utter loss of the dignity of the individual. And for dissenting against the fashionable thinking of the time, she was vilified. Unfortunately, for us, fashions tend to return. And somehow, like mom jeans, we cannot shake Marxism. It's cool again, just with a slightly different twist. Please, as you head into your 20s, push back against the temptation to accept the retribalization of society. Push back against the idea that everything is a dichotomy of oppressor and oppressed, then that everything can be reduced to power. It can't, and thank God. Those that have pushed these ideas in the past have done some of the most horrific things. Remember that. Don't forget it. Listen to Millay and question the so-called facts that are raining down upon you. And remember something. Remember, there is so much to be grateful for. There are so many good people in the world, so many things worth living for and protecting, so many things to devote your life to go and build. Beautiful and noble things worthy of your efforts, friendships built around virtue and the pursuit of what is good, marriages anchored to true love, the giving away of yourself for the sake of the other, children raised to know what is good and how to love, families that exude joy and devotion and trust. You can be a part of it all. Remember, there is so much promise and possibility before you. And remember that gratitude for the good things that surround you is an essential part of avoiding the cynicisms that plague so many. Remember that there is more good going on in everyday life than can even be accounted for. And remember Glendale Prep. Remember the simpler days when pursuing what was true and good and beautiful was as easy as opening a book and starting a conversation. And remember the teachers and the staff who made those conversations possible. Remember what they've done to provide you one of the finest educations that exists in the world today. The men and women here before you are living proof that life is full of blessings, more than we could ever deserve. God bless you as you go, and know that you are loved.